Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Chris and Andre Show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Chris and Andre Show. We're super glad you joined us this week, as always. I'm Andre.
And I'm Chris.
You sound so inspired to say that this week.
And I'm Chris.
That's even worse. Oh. But we're
make up your mind. What do you want?
We're glad that Riverside's working out. Like the AWS issues are all cleared up, so I'm sure everybody on the internet's excited. This week, I'm super excited to have we don't have friend of the show Joe here this week. He made up a story about his kid having a birthday. Yeah, I don't know about that, but we do have a very special guest, somebody I know pretty well. My youngest son, Matthew Powell.
Hey, how are you guys? We're getting there.
So Matt and I, we actually talk probably, I'd say, at least twice a month, and we have some pretty fun conversations. And I'm like, you know what, Matt? You're a grown man. You should be able to have these conversations with other adults. So love to see if you'd join us in the podcast. So I'm very honored that you're here. And I always want to say I love you because you're. So I'm really glad you're here.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm ready. Let's have fun.
Okay.
I like how you prefaced all of that. It's like
I know. I appreciate you thinking that I can step up with the big dogs.
Yeah, I mean, like this is some great honor to be invited onto the Chris and Andre Show. Not to beat down our other guests from the past or anything, but I always am just like I use us as proof that anybody can make a podcast, anybody can publish on the internet, even these two idiots.
But that's fair. Not as well as us.
This idiot, I should say. And Andre.
God, let's get at it. Let's talk about some politics.
Ooh, fun.
It's time for politics.
So, one thing that I want to kind of preface this with, we got trolled on Twitter over the weekend.
It's a good old-fashioned troll job.
Yeah, it was amazing. The guy almost sucked me into to actually reacting and calling him stupid. And I was just like, I came this close, but I was like, no, I just can't do it. But I want to just go on a record saying that we are not and it's not a disclaimer. It's just the actual truth. It's not about partisanship with this show, or I never have conversations with my kids about, right versus wrong per party. It's about what's the right thing to do. Myself personally, I've registered in both parties, and currently I'm now independent. And to be quite honest with you, I voted more Republican than I have Democrat in my entire voting history, but never a straight ticket. So what I find interesting is and I find sad, is the majority of people in these little corners of the internet, they prove the points of fringe people having opinions about politics that sway political views. So I just wanted to kind of get that out of my system. I actually having some time to think about how I felt about it. I'm like, yeah, that's about right. So
I just kind of laughed, looking at it, how did this guy find us? I should say person. I shouldn't assume that the picture in the profile is necessarily him.
That's a dude.
But he came across as a dude, that's for sure. But yeah, I started I started thinking of all the things, of all the podcasts out there that are probably talking about this kind of stuff, or people in general, why ours all of a sudden? It's certainly not the first time that we've talked about the connection between racism and Republicans, or the GOP, and I'm sure it won't be the last. I mean, hell, we're talking about it right now. But it's, I just, it was one of the, I was similar in that I saw the replies and I was like, oh, Twitter engagement. And then I read what they were and I was like, oh, it's an asshole. And I started reading, and I was just like, wait a second, like, who is this guy that he's even like claiming that, oh, Biden eulogizes Ernest Hollings? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. He was a senator who was pro-segregation in South Carolina, like, who once they like lost out in the courts was like, all right, that's it. We don't have a choice. Like, we have to integrate, and has now gone like back and said, yeah, I knew it was wrong at the time. I'm not going to pretend like I didn't. And this guy was like, oh, so you can apologize and then it's okay. And it's like, well, in a sense, yes. Like, if you mean it, you know? But, and I mean, it's not like you've ever heard Trump or any of the other Republicans actually apologize for any of the horrible things that they do and say on a regular basis. But I don't know. It's just, I'm with you in that, as pro-Democrat as we may come across sometimes, like, we're not card carrying, like, you know, I'm not carrying their flag. It's,
no,
I'm
literally about to shit all over Joe Biden right now. Like, I'm literally
I mean, the Democrats themselves have a long ways to go, right? Like, I think that's where I'm always confused, in that it's like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe some people feel like we were overly critical of Trump and that we aren't being as critical of Joe Biden, but
sure. But I'll say this, like, when it comes to that argument. It wasn't that I started out of the gate of saying Trump was a terrible president. I gave him some time to actually get his feet wet in the job.
I even think in like one of our early episodes, we were like, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. Like, I expected the world to be over by now, and we're still standing. So, I mean, he's got that going for him.
Yeah, we're not all dead. So,
and then the pandemic hit.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, not to, I'll be clear. It's never about partisanship for me. Like, I'll be honest, like, my personal life, I don't, my son can attest, I don't necessarily agree with everything that my kids do, but I just want to,
No, definitely not.
I'm like, hey, this is what I think. I don't expect you to change your opinion. I just want to share my thoughts on it, and then I move on. Right, Matt?
Yeah, definitely fair in that sense, where you're not trying to really prove a point or get to an answer. There's more, the purpose of the conversation is to deepen the understanding of each person's point of view. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of politics, I think what we're getting, it all lines up with what the job is. So, and nothing surprises me when it comes from this group of individuals, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I think that's a really good point. Like, at the end, they're all politicians, right? And so with this, like, and we've talked about this before, like this elected class that we've kind of created amongst the politician groups and where they kind of come from typically, it's like we treat them as a completely different category of citizen, and
we shouldn't.
Right. I mean, in a lot of senses, it's like, oh, they're the ones creating the law, so they're above it. But in another sense, it's like, who wants that? I mean, like, who wants that job, right? Like, who wants to go into that and deal with that cesspool on a regular basis? You know, like, I think about I watched, I think it was in like senior year, because of course I moved from California to North Carolina in between my freshman and sophomore year, so I didn't take, was it ELPSA? Like the economics, you know, law, whatever.
Politics. ELP.
Yeah, ELP. And so I had to take it my senior year. And we watched, was it Mr. Smith Goes to Washington? Because my ELPSA teacher was kind of lazy. And I just, like, I think about that now, and I'm like, I can imagine.
Hold on, pause. That's good to know.
I mean, come on, like, I'm fairly well educated on this stuff regardless. So that was the problem, was it's like he knew a lot, but he knew who he was having to teach to. And I think, like, that ultimately brought down what, like, if you engaged him in private conversation, he was very intelligent and very thoughtful. But it was like in class, he was dealing with the lowest common denominator. And it was just like, we can't get past, like, early on, he was like, who could name the national religion of the United States? And half the class raised their hand and was like, Christianity. And he's like, no, you freaking morons. There's no official religion. Like, the whole freaking country was essentially founded on the idea of freedom of religion. How dumb can you be? And these were like kids who were also seniors in high school. Like,
Yeah. I mean, to fail public schooling systems, and in North Carolina especially, it's like you have to really be trying.
oh. And I did my junior year in English. Whew. I still
me
only
too.
got
I
a
don't
D,
think
though.
I did. Yeah, I don't think I did like an assignment for the whole first semester of my senior year in high school.
Andre's like, this
And
is
still-
news to me.
Still made it through. No, he knows.
No,
he knows. Yeah. Yeah.
It keeps coming back to bite him lately. And he
Yeah,
gets mad.
no, you just think it does. I don't know. You're always coming at me. But yeah, no, it's a task. Like, you have to try hard at it. I knew people that had, and this is a crazy stat, they had missed 180 classes in the first semester when there's only 4 classes a day. So I don't know, you do the math. It's incredible.
Yeah.
You know, this guy was impeccable at skipping class, and still passed. He still graduated.
I mean, so my freshman year at NC State, I know Andre's just gonna. Oh God, I had to take, like, I'm trying to remember what it was. Like, I had taken Spanish like forever, but when I took the AP Spanish language test, I didn't get a high enough score to get credit, so that I ended up having to take like Spanish 201 when I got to school at NC State, and I hated it because I already knew it all. So I went the first 2 days, Monday, Wednesday. Friday, I decided I was hungry, and so I went to El Rodeo on Hillsborough, and I was like, that's basically the same as going to Spanish class. Like, I'm going to a Mexican restaurant,
Especially
I'll order
if
in
you
Spanish.
order in Spanish.
See?
Right.
This kid gets it.
Yeah.
And that was the last time I went to class for like 2 months. And then I just was like, oh crap, I'm going to fail if I don't show up. And so I went and just like, I passed every test, and somehow I got an A in that class. I literally didn't go to class for 2 months, and I got an A at the end of the semester. And that set me up for failure for the rest of my college career, because I was like, I don't have to go to class. I can skip 2 months, show up at the end, and they'll be like, well, I don't want to see you again. A, get out of here. Like, oh no. The rest of the teachers noticed. That was not.
Yeah.
So the bigger problem, like I get the funny of what you guys are saying. It's true, but I think the bigger problem is also part of the disillusionment with the educational system in our country.
Sure.
And you look at the student debt. I don't want to say crisis, but I would say it's probably the best word to use for it. A lot of people are disillusioned about, like, how much in loans do you take out, or what does that really mean as our economy, like, across the board has changed. Like, when I remember when I was in school, it was like become an attorney or a doctor. Then it gradually shifted to engineering and this whole, like, push for STEM. Well, guess what? It's not really true,
Well, and then it was management, right? Like, don't be the individual, be the manager. And so that was what I went to school for at State. I went to NC State for business management at, like, the start of the Nelson Management College. Like, they were not known for business management. I'm pretty sure it's the only reason I got in was because that was the school I applied to. Like, oh, that was...
My point being, it's like 163, like, so the headline is a voter with $163,000 in student debt feels betrayed by Biden. And I said I was going to shell over Biden. I will say that it's not entirely true. I think that should have never been a campaign promise.
Sure.
I think he should have basically committed to looking at, but the Democrats as a whole, I could actually blame Bernie Sanders, AOC. I could blame all of them for talking about it is a crisis, yes, but the bigger problem is that there are not enough jobs to, like, we are sending people to the educational system to look for jobs that will not exist by the time they graduate.
Yeah.
Period.
Or
End of
to
story.
earn jobs that are never going to make them enough money to actually pay off the student loan debt that they've gone
Right.
into.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's so.
Like, I'm going to get a graduate degree to go be a kindergarten teacher.
Because that makes a lot of sense, right?
I mean, and yeah, I think there is an element of self-responsibility in that, right?
Well,
but at the
no,
same
because-
time, I think it's also like most of these kids are 17, not even like maybe 18 years old, and they're allowed to sign up for hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt.
You want to hear the kicker for this story?
Yeah.
The lady's 50. She's in her 50s. She's in her 50s.
Well,
So-
and another kicker to this is none of the education that you're going to get amounts to $163,000.
Exactly.
I mean, all of that money is going into research, and the schools aren't even paying their teachers. They have grad students teach the class, or some temp that's hired by semester, and so not only are you getting into an immense amount of debt, but you're getting no knowledge for that cost, and.
Yeah, the ROI is just absolute garbage.
There is no. Well, I got to be careful. Because I really think you can over criticize without providing solutions.
Sure.
Right. And I don't want to
Yeah,
get
you
in,
do that
I
all
don't,
the
I don't want to
time.
get in that slip. I'm sorry.
That's hilarious.
But I think it's also a cause. It's a pause for wisdom, right? I swear to God. This is not going to go the way that you expect it to go.
I'm not that guy, buddy.
Oh.
I'm not that guy.
What was? I think it's. I swear to God, I'm gonna. Oh man, so I think the issue is it's like when do we step back and actually try to address the problem, right? I think there's some I don't have a solve. I think that charter schools are making it much more complicated.
Why?
That's going to exacerbate the problem because you're not making it a public school entity, but you're providing public dollars for school, and you're widening the gap of actual education for kids at a younger age.
Okay.
Right?
So I thought maybe you were talking about student loan debt still.
No.
But
so
is there an
more than
element
likely-
of that? Like I was going to ask I would imagine there are some parents that go and get like personal loans to send their kids to like private and charter schools and stuff like that, right?
Well, what most charter schools probably not, but I saw a study and I can't remember. I don't want to like misquote it, but there is a high percentage of charter school students that actually get accepted into college before public school students, right? And there is some spitball number of middle class and upper middle class students that actually get accepted at higher rates than lower income families in college. So, we're just projecting 15, 20 years out that we're going to have a much larger inequality in like economics in society.
Oh, that's
right?
great because right now it's very close. So we should be able to handle that without any issue.
And again, I don't have a solve, but I think that rage, complaining doesn't fix the problem. Sorry, but it just infuriates me.
Don't
But
apologize to him. Apologize to me. I'm the one that has to edit it.
That's hilarious. Now, what do you think about kind of tying back into what Chris said, though, is that there is a learning ability gap in people naturally, and so
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that, but I think it's much more layered than it's not very simplistic, right? I think that's a very complex thing. When you think about parents raising kids to go to school where the parents had little to no understanding of education themselves, you just keep the cycle going, right?
Well, it's like, what's the reason for your further education, right? That's what I think is part of the question that doesn't get asked anymore.
Yeah.
Or what's the core principle of learning? Forget
Sure.
education, because education can be like, it can become propaganda and stuff like that. But do you instill in people the ability to learn? One thing that my wife gives me a hard time about is that, and I've said this to you before, my parents were not very good teachers, but I understood the lessons they were trying to teach me. I was not allowed to eat dinner until I did my homework. And when I was younger, I sucked at math. But I got good enough in math to like understand that, just learn how to get through math, right? But I also learned how to learn. So, and I probably had ADD when I was a kid, but that was before you diagnosed everything. So I learned how to learn at a young age.
So,
and I think that
not to interrupt, but and I don't mean this to be overly critical of your parents and their parenting style, but do you feel like that was the best way to get you to learn math?
Oh, by no means.
Okay. Okay. I was just curious because as the person who went through it, right? Like, do you look back on it and go, no, I get it. Like, yeah, it sucked, but ultimately I see the value in the lesson that I learned. And so, like, it's okay. Because I look at it and I'm like, God, there's got to be a better way. Oh, we lost Matthew.
That's okay. Well, all right. I'm sure he'll pop back in.
That's rude.
I know, right? No, I don't think that... hold on one second. Pop back.
But that's it.
I don't think it was. It's not a foul on my parent. It's more of a.
And yeah, like I should have clarified that I don't mean that to be like, hey, look back and criticize what your parents did, but just having that 20/20 vision of hindsight, like, or 50/50 if you're Cam Newton. Like how do you evaluate that overall, right?
It's, you have to strip out the good from the bad, right? So what were they trying to teach me? They were trying to teach me to prioritize. They were trying to teach me to be very, cognizant of the way I was learning and things of that nature. So it's, asking for help with math, a lot of things like that. So but that was also self-taught because at the end of the day, I understood my job as a kid was to go to school. There was not like, I had nothing else to do. So you have to be good at it. So
I honestly wonder about that too. Like that element of it, like that education is a child's occupation, when Helena was born, we were very much in the boat of like, forget the traditional education, forget public schools, charters, private. We're going to go the unschooling route, right? Or like the self-led learning. And that was the plan for the longest time, was like, we're just going to keep her home and she's going to learn whatever she wants. And there's an element of that I really do appreciate because I think, you and I, right, we both learn things on our own that we didn't need school for, right?
Right.
School didn't ultimately provide the best avenue for us to gain that skill. And I kind of look back on a lot of the stuff that I spent my time learning in the public education sector, and I'm like, how often do I need to understand the classifications of animals by Latin names, right? Like, yeah, okay, if I'm going to be... And I understand that part of it is you're introducing the concepts because then you build on that going forward if that's something that you're interested in. But especially when I got to college, I'm like, why on earth am I having to take beekeeping in order to get a degree in business management? Unless I'm managing a beehive, I don't think that that's going to be super applicative. But that was a class that like kept getting in the way because I couldn't convince myself of the value of it to go to school.
I think I really kind of feel like the
I don't know what is going on with this app. That was hilarious.
I really feel like my issue is like on a lower level, or actually more of a higher level. It's that parents they should understand that there is education and there's learning. The parent's job is to help the kids to learn. The school's job is to educate them about certain things. The parent should have some part of the process to help them distill the things that they're being exposed to. I try to do that with all my kids, right? So one of the practices that we would have, without getting into the mechanics of what that looked like, was like, hey, what'd you learn, right? So if you can explain to me what you learned, then I can interject or not, or we can learn how to debate.
So specifically because you chose not to describe the mechanics of how that went, I'm just imagining your kids coming home from school and you like strapping them into a lie detector and being like, "What did you learn at school today?" Like, I learned mathematician. Like, and you have like a zapper. Like, I don't know. No, I mean that's pretty accurate, right, Matt? Like, thank you.
Yeah, pretty spot on. But no, it definitely opens up the door for conversation, I think, which then really teaches you how to learn, as opposed to just regurgitating information. It opens the door for him to then kind of push back, like he said, or just ask me what I think about that. And honestly, I think that's even the best option is just, oh, okay, cool, and what do you think? And I would say I agree wholeheartedly. I missed some of that, but critical thinking is definitely not emphasized at any stage of education. And but I think you don't need to teach us exactly beekeeping, but teach me how one would learn how to beekeep.
I was talking to my daughter who's 8,
and
right?
so
and explaining to her that in my experience, one of the greatest skill sets that you can have is the ability to learn, right? The ability to go into a situation with no previous knowledge, but take the skills that you've already developed and figure out how to apply them to that job and develop those additional little pieces of knowledge that you need in order to do it well. And that ultimately, when you're hiring, right, like that should be what you're looking for, the quality in somebody. It's not like, do you have experience in this specific industry that you can bring to the table? It's, do you have the ability to learn what we need you to learn in order to be able to do this job successfully? And I think like those, I mean, we talk about hiring practices and stuff all the time, and I know we're supposed to be talking about politics, but
that's fine. It's fine.
But it is like just, and I think that's where I would love to see education more focused, right? Like you were saying, Matt, on like, how do you learn? How do you learn to become a beekeeper? Like, teach me to do my own research, but not in that way. But I mean, like that was one of the skills that I developed in high school in particular. Was I had a teacher who was really big on like research papers, and so it was like you have to have a certain number of sources. They need to be X number of books, X number of websites. And it just gave you an appreciation for understanding, like, okay, this is how you corroborate the feelings or the beliefs that you may have. And sometimes you go into it thinking, like, this is the position of the paper. And then all of your research leads you to believe, oh, wow, like, or even better, I had public speaking, and I, as a big proponent of legalization of marijuana, I took the opposite stance for my public speaking just because I was like, I want to see if I can make the argument. And sure enough, there's plenty of information out there. Damn it, we lost him again.
Yeah, I think that app is crashing. So he's got the link. So
Riverside, like we gave you had one job. But yeah, like it's just, I think that ability, right, to be able to absorb information, to learn something new and adapt the skill set that you already have to the situation that you're in. It's that like adaptability, that flexibility. That's what has always worked well for me, and that I have found employers feel like is one of the most desirable traits. But
I don't disagree, obviously. I just think that the conversation that we're trying to have or we're having is not the one that we should be having. So I do kind of fault the narrative that, or the campaign promises that Democrats have been making in that regard.
Yeah, to bring it back around.
No, I mean,
but sure, no, you're right. I mean, there's I think that there needs to be a more comprehensive plan, right? It's not, oh, everybody gets free college, or everybody, we're going to eliminate all existing student loan debt. I think it's like,
but
how do we shape education going forward in this country, right?
The two things should happen at the same time.
Yes.
Right? So if most of these loans are federal loans, then I do believe that the federal government has some autonomy to fix and correct some of that.
Oh, shocking!
The messaging, the messaging was completely off, in their terms of we're going to eliminate blah, right?
Yeah.
Well, their focus has been on younger citizens of the country without thinking about, there's probably older people or people that are older that have gone back to supplement their career. And what's even worse about this particular article, and I'm sure it's happened with other people, is that because they didn't make payments for the last 2 years because of COVID, she's incurred interest.
Right.
So
it's the same thing with mortgage payments, right?
Right.
They were like, oh, don't worry about your mortgage payments. Don't worry about rent. Oh, wait, that thing's no longer in effect. Okay, all of your mortgage payments are due right now.
Right.
And it's like, and I don't know. It's so frustrating sometimes because, like, I'm not of the opinion that it should always be, vendor beware, right? Like that the seller is always responsible to educate the consumer and to be completely, and not like transparent, because it's not that they should be able or should be wanting to hide stuff about it, but like at the same time, there's an element of, the buyer beware stuff that I'm just like, we got to get over this.
That's like, what the hell, guys?
I want to be a part of this so bad. I heard legalize marijuana. I was like, no. I'm kidding. No, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was giving an example of like when I was in public speaking, I decided to do my like final presentation on anti-marijuana legalization, even though it was the opposite of the stance that I personally held.
Right.
My presentation was amazing. I used clips from the Dave Chappelle show, like the one where they're at the drive-thru and they run over the little girl.
Right.
And then they're like, it's dangerous to ride your bike while you're high because it's like the little girl was high. It's funny as shit. I think that's mostly how I got through college classes, was I would bring pop culture references into it. Like I remember my buddy and I had an English presentation where we used a bunch of Family Guy clips.
Yeah.
And our teacher gave us a 100.
You can't beat it. People love that.
Old school Family Guy was the best.
Yeah, that's the language. That's the language people speak. Why does a show like Family Guy exist for 15 plus years? Or the Simpsons
but like after the first 4, it's been pretty downhill.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
I was into Family Guy before it was cool to be into Family Guy. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Their social commentary is awesome.
I don't know. South Park, if it's social commentary and adult animation, South Park is probably where it's at for me.
Yeah.
Although I haven't watched the new one. It's supposed to be amazing.
Yeah. I haven't watched it either.
I've tried. Another thing, so
Andre's like,
I'm sorry,
politics. I want to talk politics.
I want to get this thought out of my head because I kind of feel like and it's both parties. And I left a comment about something similar to this today. Look, people aren't stupid. Republicans have a pretty good way of selling people on fear in a way of loss. Democrats have a way of selling people on fear as to you're missing out.
Or hope,
right?
False sense of hope.
Or hope, yeah. Yeah, or a false sense of hope. And they're both counterproductive to what people are trying to do. Like real everyday people, they're not really there like 80% of their life, but you definitely tapped in on how to, draw that out of people. And I think that in and of itself is scary. The student loan debt is a perfect example of that. On the opposite side, I have a sense that, and I don't like it, and I'm going to tie these two things together, the election stuff. And I've said this a lot. I don't really give a crap about federal stuff. A lot of the time, it's about what's happening in your state.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're letting school board changes happen, we're letting state legislatures decide, how and when people can vote, that it's not very equal across the board for every citizen, scares me. And just to remind you guys, the time I was at working in E area, and it was election time, and I literally said to Chris, "Yeah, I've got my ID." And this guy, he told me, I remember this to this day, "You don't need your driver's license to vote." And I'm like, "Yeah, you don't." But I'm just waiting for that day for that other shoe to drop, so I'm all prepared for it. And that's the reality that most people, I would say, generally middle class and above, that aren't affected by the, the turmoil of what it costs or what the challenges are of getting ID or opening a bank account. That should make people say, not that it's right or wrong, but ask the question, right? The question should be, well, why don't you have a license? Why don't you have ID? I don't know. Let me look at your neighborhood. Why are there no banks in your neighborhood? Why are there only check cashing places?
Why is there no DMV?
Why is there no DMV? Except, and the bus route only goes like that way, one way, and then you have to figure out how to get home. There's a lot of questions where people should be asking. So, how do we make these things easier to, if we're going to have these laws, that it doesn't impact one group over the other? It's okay. So just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that earlier today, specifically when it comes to like public transportation and stuff. Like, this country at some point decided, if you don't drive a car, fuck you. Like, I mean, and like big cities like New York are obviously a lot different. But I mean, like down here in Wilmington, I'm sitting here looking at like, man, if like I saw some small family, like a woman and her 2 children walking home from Walmart, and they're like in the drainage ditch because there's no sidewalk. And I'm like, how hard would it have been to build a freaking sidewalk over there for people? But no, instead, like, we have people just walking on the side of the road. And that's the stuff where it's just like, the buses, the lack of other modes of public transportation. It's such a big middle finger to everybody that is below a certain income level. And then you look at like the skyrocketing price of everything now, I mean, like, what a brilliant plan, right? Let's concentrate as much wealth in as few hands as possible, and then let's raise the price of everything so that nobody can afford anything.
So where would you accredit the price increases?
I don't know. That's a good question, because I feel like some of it is just plain greed. That it's like, oh, people have more money. They're willing to spend more money on this, right? Like, isn't that essentially what inflation is? People have more so they can spend more? To an extent.
To an extent.
Like, that's an element of it. I don't know. I mean, it's not Joe Biden's fault. Like, I don't, I'm not like, Joe Biden's causing inflation. Like, we all saw this coming for a long time now. You hold interest rates, artificially low. Everybody is getting money in their pockets from the stimuli checks and stuff like that. And it's just, like this was bound to happen. The question is like, how are we actually going to get through this? Is it going to be super painful, or is it going to be more of like a gradual, like, oh man, this is really starting to suck? I don't know. But like, I mean, gas prices are going down, right? So
that was all. I mean, you kick in 50 million barrels, and you're bound to get that.
Shocking.
Right? Yeah. So, and that's the thing that I don't. Here he is, man. So I'm going to give a shout out to Riverside. Please fix your iOS app.
I don't know. I mean, it could be me at this point. I don't know how old this phone is.
It's all good.
Dude,
but
buy your kid a new phone. Come on, what is this?
That was not that. That was
Christmas
hilarious.
is like right around the corner.
Yeah,
We're gonna start a GoFundMe page for Matt's new phone, but it has to be an iPhone. No Androids.
Right? No Androids. That's hilarious.
All I
First
can
of
think
all-
of right now is I pay you enough to buy one of those for yourself.
Yeah, my kids will all attest. Like, yeah, once you start doing grown person stuff,
That's it.
I'm good.
Cut off.
Yeah.
Like your first grown person move, you're done, yo. Uh-oh.
He's like just talk.
I know, you got
talk,
saved
talk.
by God on that one. Your audio went out. I think it might be your... What'd you say?
Now we can hear you again.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, when you start being an adult, you're like, yeah, but I'm a grown man. All right, you do you, Playboy. Go ahead.
That's like in my family. When you turn like 16, everybody stops sending you birthday checks. So I don't even have to explain this to Matt because I know like he's listened to enough of the podcast that he knows that this is just how this goes.
That's just Chris trolling me to see like if he can get a rise out of me. That's okay. Okay, Matt's like, I found the media board. So let's
try to get back on track here.
Yeah, I just think that I want to kind of bring it back to my original thought is I think people need to kind of be okay with asking better questions about whether it's politics or education. Education is the short-term problem because that's going to affect like at least two generations if we're not careful. If we don't do something different, and then politics, that's a long-term problem. You know, what do we do to have more? Like, I hate to use the word transparency. How about we have honest conversations, right? Like, stop trying to shoot each other down because you think your willy's bigger than somebody else's. Because the reality is most people I talk to about politics don't understand politics.
Yeah, and it's we've gotten to a point now where nobody's doing anything. You know, everybody's talking about what they're going to do or well, okay. You have one group that's talking about what they want to do.
I'm sorry. I'm going to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
You got everybody regurgitating like talking points, which pisses me off.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure that's...
No, that's absolutely true. I just think that...
I was getting real. He's taking off his flannel.
No, it's getting real hot. I don't know, man. I just... You know, it's like we were talking about that argument or whatever, the troll job on Twitter, and...
Right.
I just think, like, at the end of the day... Both parties have significant issues that they need to figure out. You know, like I'm not, I talked about this earlier, like I'm not a flag bearer for the Democratic Party. I just look at the two and I go, okay, one of you is evil AF and the other needs to get its stuff together to be like what it should be or what it could be, but at least you're like closer to what we need. And then you like, because I just feel like it's one of those things where like, you get like the libertarian voice coming in. It's like, oh, screw everybody, you know, nobody's right. We should just all vote third party. And it's like, okay, just go back to your hidey hole.
Well, that's why we have Rand Paul, right? So it's a matter, I think it's, so to be honest, when I was like, whenever I'm challenged, this is now the third or fourth time in the last 2 months somebody's challenged me on some of these quasi-political arguments, and they're really talking points. I can tell you where they come from. It's like you have no facts, you know. I will say that I'm tired of non-white people telling me that the Democratic Party has had the history of racism. I think that is like fundamentally, historically, contextually wrong.
Yeah.
They couldn't prove it if they wanted to. And I almost did this, and I was so frustrated looking back on the transition of quote unquote segregationists, people that did not want to abolish slavery. And I was going to pull I almost did this, but I'm like, yeah, that's beyond petty. I'm doing the work to fight an argument I don't necessarily agree with.
And one that you're probably not going to win in the long run.
Yeah, because they believe what they believe.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Yeah.
It's like I can tell you all day that this Party of Lincoln nonsense is not accurate.
I mean, it'd be one thing if, like, the Lincoln log Republicans or whatever they call themselves. The log cabin Republicans, is that what it is?
Yeah.
I like Lincoln log Republicans better. But if they actually stood for, I mean, it's kind of like evangelists in a sense, right? It's like
The
evangelicals, yeah. Where it's like, you know, this, I'm going to preach all of these values, but I don't actually believe them. And that's what I feel like you get with this revisionist history of Republicans, where it's like, Abe Lincoln was a Republican, and it's like, yeah, okay. Like, that, in a sense, it's like looking back on history and saying, well, the swastika was always bad. Anybody that ever used the swastika, even before Nazis, was a Nazi. And it's like, no, that's not really how that works.
Right.
I think, and this is part of where you and I mean, I know we agree on several things, but in this particular context where we're talking about like the debate and arguments between people, like the disingenuousness, right, behind this is where I take such issue. I'm not looking, like when this guy posted the stuff about Ernest Rawlings or Hollings, whatever, I'd never heard of this dude. Right? I'm like, who is this? Did Biden really eulogize some former KKK member? So, like, I watched the video that he posted, and then I'm, like, looking on the guy's Wikipedia page. I literally did a Google search for, you know, Ernest Hollings KKK, and I could find nothing that was like, dude was a former KKK member, right? Or was a member of the KKK while he was... I'm like, the only thing that was even close was that he was pro-segregation when he was in office in South Carolina. Like, and yeah, I'm not like, yeah, pro-segregation, that's totally cool. But I'm like...
In South Carolina.
Right, South Carolina.
Pro-segregation in South Carolina. Right? Pro-segregation in North Carolina.
And what was his response, right? When, through all legal channels, they were rebuffed their attempts to stop segregation. He said... Guys, we got to do it. The law says we have to do it. Ultimately, that's what matters so much more than the rest of this. That's where I'm starting to have an issue, right? Is that there is a belief amongst some of the people in that group that the law no longer matters, right? The law, because it was written by evil people who are pedophiles, you know, is somehow wrong, and we can just ignore it. We are now all above the law as long as we are fighting for, you know, I don't even know. I don't know what we're fighting for anymore. I'm frustrated.
And
I don't know if you can tell.
I'm frustrated also. Like I don't, like you mentioned this.
I mentioned a lot of things.
You said, like, you mentioned a hit job, and I think that it's not a hit job. It's like, I think that these groups have figured out the weakness of society. It's us versus them politics.
Sure.
And that's where it's like we're going beyond petty. We're going to this place where nothing gets resolved, and you keep these little silos of influence. You keep the impact of these dumb laws like that just overarch, and most of them are not even federal laws. It's all state laws, and most people don't even realize that. So when somebody can say to me, tell me one law that Republicans passed that was racist, I'm like, so which group of, like, so are you saying Republican ideology or Republican the party?
I really wanted to be like, my dude, we live in North Carolina.
Yeah,
like the Republican-controlled state legislature has been reprimanded repeatedly now for gerrymandering based on racial profiling or ethnic profiling. It's like, what part of that is not racist?
How do you not, like, it's a matter of...
And I love the argument that, like, you can only point to former KKK members like David Duke and the dude that's running in Georgia. And I'm like,
stop being racist when you stop.
Okay. He was trying to equate that to Ernest Hollings, where he's like, oh, well, he was a segregationist, and now he says he's not a segregationist anymore, and so that makes him, you know, that makes him okay. And I'm like, well, based on what he said, yeah. If there was there were former Ku Klux Klan members who have now come out and been like, nah, man, that shit's wrong. You know what? Those dudes are okay. I'm not, like, do I say, well, what you did was okay? No, but they've atoned for it. They've made have apologized, right? Like they've done. I'm not saying everybody, but I'm just saying like in the cases of people that I've seen in the news and whatnot. Like that's a completely different situation.
But the argument always has to be for like these apologists for the Republican Party. They have no arguments,
right?
Like it's literally they're stretching. And to be fair, you know what? We're going to talk about it. I kind of believe, and whatever else we have, we'll probably get to it, but we probably won't. I'm going to talk about how I felt about that. It just shows the ignorance of our society right now. Like, straight up. When you engage with people that are just going to shove their talking points at you without any fact, and they try to kind of, you know, steamroll you with these, like, limited facts, it's annoying, right? And it's like, yo, you pulled all your shit from. You're gonna have a lot of bleeping. You're like a.
Oh, shit's okay.
You're
we can shit all over this shitty podcast.
You're a Candace Owens like clone. I don't rock with you. I'm not sitting here saying that any party deserves my loyalty. It's not the point. No,
that's the
point. But that's the argument that these clowns try to take.
No,
right?
I understand, but it's just that's the hilarity of it in my mind. Is it's like that's so anti-American to think that
it's so anti their own argument.
Yeah.
They're like, you shouldn't do this, and you should be in line with this party because this party has never. Like, what are you talking about?
Right. You should not blindly follow any party, but come blindly
Except
follow my party that I'm a part of. Dude, okay, so do you remember this kid, Bo Hines? He played at NC State for wide receiver. He was a wide receiver a few years ago. All right, I'm going to share my screen here because this is hopefully you can hear this when this plays too. But he's running for Congress in North Carolina. He left NC State to go to Yale for like Yale Law School or something like that. So very smart individual. At least I used to think so. So I'm on his. You can't see my screen, can you?
I can now.
Okay. You'll see right here that Bo Hines retweeted some tweet by Madison Cawthorn. So that alone should tell you. But yeah, so this is his ad for U.S. for state Congress, I guess. I don't know. No, it must be U.S. Congress.
Yeah, there's an empty seat. I think this is. I want to say this is a guy that. Oh God, he's a total.
It's like all this hard work that earned him a scholarship to NC State. America first.
You know what?
Oh, there's AOC and Bernie and Ilhan. Oh, and Pelosi and Schumer. Rhinos. Look, I have a dog. Construction, babies, the right to bear arms. Big tech censorship, cancel culture, secure our borders, and fair elections. I just love, like, these people must be like, who the hell is he talking to? Who? And the guy's like, who is this guy? He just sat down at this table. We've never seen him before.
But that's the problem, though. They've got.
That's all they need.
They don't need anything else. They just need to tap into that. It's.
I mean, it's awful. It's just okay. So I know you don't agree with me necessarily on this, but I've complained recently, or at least commented on Marvel's choice to repeat the same generic plots throughout their different movies, right? And I feel like that's kind of where we are with the GOP at this point. It's like they found their magic formula, and so now every candidate is just like, you know, America first, borders, elections, and if there's time, Donald Trump. Oh, and guns. Don't forget guns. Oh, and babies. We have to protect all the babies until they're born. Then they're not our problem anymore. You take care of your own goddamn kids.
Wow, you said a lot there.
I know. I'm sorry. Like I said,
I don't agree with. I don't like the Marvel comparison. I strongly disagree with that.
Well, you disagree with my take on it, but if my take was true, do you feel like that would be inaccurate?
I think they have a winning formula. They are definitely addressing this. It's actually reverse racism, right? They're not like, I'm going to say this very boldly. I don't give a shit. I'm going to be honest about it.
Yeah.
For non-whites that are supporting this lunacy, you need to really evaluate what you're saying and what you're doing, because I think you're kind of getting played. Like, I'll be honest. Like, I'll say, for, like, I, as a former card-carrying Republican, I'll just say, like, flat out, I think you're getting played. And it's all good until, like, it's not all good anymore. So, I think the safer bet is to not, like, is to criticize. And I even give credit to Charlemagne the God, Like, I'm like, I don't agree with everything he says, but I kind of agree with this. Like, when Biden made this stupid comment about, if you're black, you don't vote for me, then you're not really black, or, paraphrasing. Yeah. I don't owe any party any allegiance, but I do want to make sure that what they're doing is equitable for the people of the country. And it's not about I'm not going to play the reverse racism card with everybody and say, like, oh, you got to do this for black people. No, you need to treat black people right. You need to treat everybody else that's not influencing of power, or I hate to use the word power, but not of influence in this country. Give them an opportunity to do the things they want to do, like to have a family, like to, if you want to talk about abortion and these stupid ass laws, honestly, why is it happening in lower income communities? It's not because, like, we're stupid people. I come from those those income communities at one point in my life. It's because there's no opportunity. And so if you're being one of these, you got to beep this out, but I'm going to say it. If you're one of these little on the Republican team, you got to beep that out, dude. That cannot go on YouTube, because that's going to be bad.
That's a lot of bleeping, but I'll take care of it.
I'm going to tell you, like, yo, you're getting played,
Speaking
man.
of which, did you see Hershel Walker's kid?
Yo, dude deleted his tweet, yo. He deleted his video of, like, yo, stop performing for these people, man.
I don't get it.
You're all right until you're not all right, man. I kid you not, man.
Like, you hit it right there. It's all a performance. Like, that's where we're at this point, I feel like. It's like everything is some level of dramatic performance, and there's so little reality in our real world, and it's not I mean, I know I did, like, the cliche is gun violence in movies and pop culture leading to gun violence in real life just a couple of weeks ago or last week, but I don't think that this is, like, the same thing. I don't even think that that's necessarily true. Like, I grew up watching plenty of gun violence, and I don't ever get the desire to go out and shoot up a movie theater or a school full of kids. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't.
You know what, man? That's not. I think that. I mean, like, I've seen people get, like, shot. I mean, I've seen people die. I mean, there's a lot of things, like, I'm like, yo, but the difference between what you do with what you experience and what you do in the future is having opportunities to do it, right?
Yeah.
And this performance art by anybody, I don't care who you are, what your ethnicity is, what your culture is, if you're not willing to stand by what's right, then go yourself.
I mean, like, yeah, if you're not, if all it is a performance and there's no reality behind it, then yes, go yourself.
And that's, I mean, if I'm being honest, like, I'm not going to be apologetic to anybody that, like, look, and I guess we're talking about politics. I don't give a shit about Democrats or Republicans. So in that aspect, it's like, look, you're right. If you earn my vote, if I believe what you're saying, it doesn't matter what party affiliation you have. I don't care. Right. Do I want to see people have an opportunity to do better? Yes. But do I want some equity to be between, not just with people that have less barriers? Like, I want to see, like, yo, bring everybody up. Like, real talk, bring everybody up. Stop bullshitting me. And like when you're running for office and then trying to act like, oh, I didn't say that. Like you did say it. So either commit to what you can commit to or don't commit to it at all.
Yeah.
And what pisses me off the most is that I think Americans in general are being gaslit. You know, people that think I don't think people believe in the former guy like they really do. I think he represents something that people didn't have. And that's in the GOP.
Well, and you talked about like the reverse racism, which I think has fueled a huge part of that. Is there's this fear of being replaced, right? Of like losing the influence in this country of white people. And I like, on the one hand, I understand why that fear exists, but on the other hand, I look at it and I go, well, yeah, but the only reason that we had that to begin with is because of all the horrible things that we were doing to everybody else. Like, if that's what it takes for us to have complete control, then yeah, that's not worth it. Like, come on, guys, it's not that hard.
So, you're right. And I read something on JFK today, like because I was curious, like this. Not that this guy sent me in a panic, but I'm like, let me just check like my own belief systems, right? Like, because if somebody tries to insult my intelligence, they can go f themselves, because I don't say stuff just off the cuff of like, you know, I know this 100% and I'm like, oh, but I'm lying or I don't know. So even JFK wasn't altogether about signing the Civil Rights Bill, right? And like if you look, you know, research it, like legit research it. But JFK gets a lot of love in history, one, because he got assassinated, not because of anything he actually did, but because he got assassinated. And if you look at gosh, no, his name forgets. When the Civil Rights Bill got passed,
Johnson?
It wasn't Johnson, Lyndon B. Johnson. There wasn't a lot of fanfare behind it, but it was to avoid a problem that was quickly brewing in the country. So, would I say that the country really wanted to do it? I think it needed to. It just wasn't comfortable with doing it all the way. That's what you had to fight. You had to still go on and fight, you know, the Jim Crow South and blah, blah, you know, you still had things to fight. You had to send the National Guard to schools. So neither party is like clean as if you look at the parties themselves, but if you look at the individuals of what they did after those facts. I mean, shit, we live in the state of Jesse Helms.
Yeah. We live next to the state of Strom Thurmond.
Yeah.
Like
so for anybody to come at me with some stupid ass shit of I don't know, my mom was like, for anybody listening, like, look, my mom was stationed in Goldsboro, North Carolina, in the United States Air Force, where she was called, and she was in charge of people, still called outside of her name as people complied to what they asked her to do. So you don't get to tell me what I believe and what I don't believe. And I'm glad my mother went through that and I didn't have to go through that. So, because I wouldn't be down with that. Secondly, my grandparents marched with Martin Luther King back in the days in New York. So you don't get to tell me what I believe and what I don't believe. So you take your bullshit somewhere else, and it's not about party loyalty. It's about what's right for everybody. And that's what I think people, they get stuck in this reverse, or it's just like lazy opinion. Like, just, I own an opinion because I'm lazy. Yeah. I don't think Democrats are perfect. I don't think liberals are perfect. I don't think Republicans are perfect. I want to do what's like right for people in general. And that's what pisses me off, is that people can't get out of these little stupid bullshit camps to figure it out.
And you can't, there's no conversations being had, you know, even in Congress, right? It's all Democrats or all Republicans. There's no compromise anywhere. There's no collaboration to find a solution that both sides agree. Like, let's address the key points and make something happen. I get that they're not going to agree on so many things, but at the same time, like, what are the key things that we can agree on, and how do we make progress on those? And by doing so, build that relationship, right? Strengthen that tool of communication between the two parties. Feel like, hey, there is some common ground here. We have something that we can then build off of and move forward from here. I don't know. We were talking about Jesse Helms, and for some reason that made me think of another former North Carolina representative or congresswoman, Elizabeth Dole, and the passing of her husband, Bob Dole, I think 2 weeks ago. And I meant to say something last week, and we just kind of got caught up in the conversation about other stuff. But, Bob Dole's one of those guys where I would say not a perfect politician by any stretch of the imagination, but part of what I think this country is sorely missing in our politicians and leadership right now. That was a man that loved his country above and beyond pretty much anything else. And I think even in his opportunities, like when he lost to Clinton, he stood up there and lauded the man that he had fought so hard to defeat. And God, I miss that, I miss that sense of, hey, this was a tough campaign or a tough election that we ran. But at the end of the day, we both understand that one of us is going to do a really good job for the country. And I think part of that is because the people have stopped seeing that in the opposing party, that it is.
Or I think the media is on their
no,
I'm like really pissed. They're sucking their own like the media is really just, they do not care, like in general, about how do we present the facts so people can form opinions. It is so loaded in something beyond what people actually care about. And then, for example, you have Fox, who's been completely radio silent about the fact that Laura Ingraham, what's that
Bill,
idiot? No. Oh yeah, the guy from the morning show. I don't even know. He's not important to me. And then you got Sean Hannity.
Yep.
They're all texting Mark Meadows.
Yeah. Dude, he's got to do something.
But what do you hear?
They had Mark Meadows on Fox News today. Yeah, and that was it. Talking about how the committee was not interested in finding the truth, but rather just interested in hurting Trump.
Man.
Yeah.
Out of here. I'm so fed up, and what bothers me is like you got so many what could be seemingly intelligent people that they cling to these stupid ideologies, and they wonder why things are so foul.
I mean, we've talked about it before. I still struggle to understand how people can allow themselves to believe those things. And I think, there's a part of them that wants it to be true, right? They want to belong to something, and they want to feel like what they belong to is right. And it's gotten to a point of righteous, right? That the cause that I support is the righteous cause, and any means, it's getting to the point of like any means necessary to achieve what we want is acceptable.
And that's sad.
Yeah,
it's pathetic. It's sad. It's just annoying. Like I just really can't. It's like you hear crickets on. What's funny, when I heard the Mark Meadows news, and I actually watched the Senate hearing this morning when they were talking, or the House,
like Cheney reading
committee.
all of the text messages.
Yeah, dude, it was so Burgess. I don't know where Burgess is from, but he's like, well, why don't we have Nancy Pelosi here? Why don't we have Senator Schumer here? I'm like, what are you fucking talking about?
Yeah.
The fuck are you talking about?
It's all about, the Republican Party at this point it's whataboutism. What about this? What about that? What about that? What about this?
She was in charge of security, but you got your boy straight. Like, I kid you not, and I'm on my right toe. I did not vote for President Obama twice. I still get shit about it to this day. I voted for Mitt Romney and I voted for John McCain. But I swear to God, if it was one of those guys like did the same foul shit that Trump did, it would be a freaking it's like hell came on. Like they would storm everything possible if they did anything that Trump did. And that's what blows my mind of the hypocrisy of the GOP.
But is that true? I mean, like, I wonder now, is that really true? Or is Trump just the excuse for them to finally, like if John McCain, but this is the thing, like, John McCain would never do that.
If Obama,
okay, no, I see what you're saying now. Okay, if Obama had somehow lost, right, to Mitt Romney in the second election, and was like, hey, y'all, I know this sounds crazy, but I didn't really lose. They stole this from me, so I'm just going to declare a state of emergency for, like, the next 4 years.
Just for a little bit.
And hang out until we get this all cleared up. And in the meantime, Mitt, why don't you come chill in this private room with some bars on the door that I have for you in the basement of the White House, just to keep you safe, so I know where you are, so that the moment that we get this straightened out, if you're president, we can move you right in there, right? Oh, nobody's heard from Mitt in a while. Has anybody been down to feed him? Oh, shit.
I mean,
Sorry,
real talk,
like
and I'm telling you. No, but it's like you thought it out. But I'm saying, real talk. Like, I kid you not, and I'm telling you, like, on record, I did not vote for Barack Obama twice. I still get shit about it to this day.
That's right.
But
between the two of us, I voted for Barack twice. That's right. That's right.
That's true. Real facts, so I'm not going to lie about it. But my intent was had nothing to do with his ethnicity. Nothing at all. No, but I'm telling the audience. It was about policies. What's going to help my people out in my... Well, I'm just
kidding. We actually do have an audience now.
Yeah, we do. But to vote for the policies I thought would help not just one group of people, but for every people. Like, and I just didn't feel confident in his experience or what he could do, right? Twice. And it's like, all right. And even with the Affordable Care Act, I'm still on the fence about it.
Right.
But I will say this. I will concede that it forced the issue of getting changes with healthcare. That has been the only thing in my entire voting history that's actually forced changes in healthcare that's ever happened.
Quick aside on that, I have a friend who was enrolled at NC State and was getting insurance through the university.
It's gone now?
No, they were charging him obscene amounts of money for coverage that he was able to get on the marketplace through the ACA for like pennies on the dollar. And he was pissed. He was like, how am I paying this much when I'm going through the school? The school offers me this rate.
The public school. The school that's funded by public dollars. And that's where, like, that's where my conservative, like, chips in. It's like, look, man, like, I'm still pissed at the lottery. I'm sorry, I mean, you have a lot of editing. But there's a lot of the lottery in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Like, all this money that goes to the lottery in this state, and the kids still don't have books in school.
You saw the video of the teachers in South Dakota, right?
Yes.
Scrambling for dollar bills at the ice rink. This is what, like, I mean, and I know that's not everywhere. I understand. And, like,
it's a vast majority.
But there's right.
Just this past, the summer before last, teachers went on strike. And we still can't step up and do the right thing.
No.
And so, like,
because we don't view teachers as anything more than glorified babysitters these days. And I say we, I do not include myself or Andre in that, because I personally greatly appreciate the job that teachers do. I'm not saying all teachers are perfect or all teachers are great, but I understand that you deal with all of our kids on a regular basis in a sense that we don't have to. And you're trying to teach them and help them grow into individuals. Like, this is a co-parenting relationship as much as it is anything.
It's complicated. It's complicated. It makes no sense.
Now, I'll challenge you on that. I don't think it's complicated, but it is complex.
I see what
I'm sorry.
Well, actually...
I'm sure it is complicated this time, but I couldn't resist.
The thing I can't get around is that, a lot of funding for schools has to do on local property taxes.
Yeah.
But we all get the same pot. from the federal government for whatever. I think it's like 40% on average that actually funds school systems. But in the state like North Carolina, where I keep saying like the average income is different from the median income here, and I use those two things, even though they technically mean the same thing, I use them interchangeably so I can think about them in a different way. So you take
average income and median income are not the same.
Well, if you look at
no, because the median is what number appears in the middle of the group.
In the middle.
The average is average,
but in most counties in this state,
it's very similar in a lot of cases.
They're very similar, sure. Right? So I'm very intent on seeing the differences of those, right? I understand the definition.
No, I know
like
you do. I just
okay. Are we splitting hairs here? So we might be. I just saw something about Morrisville being the #1 city to live in North Carolina. You know,
which one?
The average income at Morrisville.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Give me Cary or Apex, but don't stick me in that armpit called Morrisville.
104,000, 103,000 a year is the annual household income in Morrisville. So I say that to say this. Morrisville is actually like the city that has not been annexed by Cary yet. That's it. Yeah. And Durham wants nothing to do with it because they have their own problems. Yeah. But we're talking a sliver of this state that is probably comparable to like a East Coast or Northeast salary.
But the whole reason that area is desirable to move to is because it doesn't carry the same housing prices quite,
property tax.
Property taxes, right? No, as
it's property tax.
The town of Cary or Durham.
Yes. Well, God bless them. They probably have 2 or 3 more years before that's no longer.
Well, I mean, to be fair, when I lived in Cary, like every time you knew, it's like when you drive to South Carolina. You know when you cross the line from North Carolina to South Carolina because all of a sudden you go from, oh, this is a nice drive, and that's what it was like every time that you'd cross that stupid little sliver of North Carolina called Morrisville, where it's like, oh, I'm driving along on a road, oh, and I'm in Durham. Like,
so imagine a rectangle in the middle of 2 squares, and that's what Morrisville is. So if you're driving from one town, like
it's a dick.
So to bring it back to my point, like we talk about the educational system, and if a majority of like the gap between federal and state funds in education is local property taxes, we still have, I don't know, 97% of the counties that can't afford to actually foot the bill to pay teachers fairly. Right? So any diehard GOP person, what's your solve for that? Mr. I don't like big government. What's your what's your solve
Charter
for that?
Schools.
Oh, but you're going to take state dollars.
Yeah, well,
you're going to take federal dollars also.
They're better, so we're just going to put our money there and screw.
Yeah, but how?
No, it's not about how. It's just that's my answer.
But it's a stupid argument, and that's what infuriates me. It's like you can't be so loyal to your party you forget the end game.
And that's exactly where I feel like we're at. That's part of why I was somewhat perturbed by this person's accusations, right? Like, first off, I know we've been really focused on this. So congratulations, Patriot 1776 or whatever your stupid name was. But it was just like, dude, because like you asked him,
you called this guy out.
Yeah, whatever.
I've got the perfect title for this episode.
It was one of those things where I was just like, you even asked him, did you watch the episode? Like, or did you even watch the clip? And I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, okay. The headline is a little, like, sensationalist in the sense of like it's a marketing headline, but if you sit down and watch the actual clip, like we're specifically talking about there's a former member of the KKK who's running on the GOP ticket in Georgia. Boom. That's a fact. There's no debate about whether or not that's true. You and I, our opinion is that the Republicans have been very racist and not very good at hiding it for some time now through their laws that they passed and their general behavior. The fact that they don't want non-whites to vote. Like, these are all things that you could consider fact. I'll just throw them up there as opinion in this case, just for shits and giggles, right? What on earth can you take issue with that? That's what I'm like, oh, Republicans aren't racist. And I'm like, so you have a former KKK member that's running on the GOP ticket. Well, that's not all Republicans. It's just this one dude in Georgia. And I'm like, okay.
But to be fair, you literally said not all Republicans are racist, but all the races are in the Republican Party.
Which is also, to be fair, not true, right? I mean, like, we talked about it on the Dave Chappelle, like, episode, right?
I know. I'm just saying.
And I do, like, I listened to that clip, and it was half in jest, right? It was a funny line that I thought of in my head as I was speaking. But I do recognize, like, yes, racists exist everywhere. I grew up in California, okay? I know that racists exist everywhere. Rednecks exist.
Ironically, Patriot 1776 is from
Ghana,
California, right? No, he lives in California.
Oh, he lives in California, yeah.
If you say anything about Ghana, he now calls you a racist.
Okay, well, I guess that makes me a racist now.
Yeah.
But I have two friends that are not white.
That's fair. Yeah. You're still a racist.
I am. I'm very...
Like, you put that in your profile, like you mentioned that you're from Ghana. So the part of the dialogue is actually understanding the other person, right?
Just to be clear, I did not put that in my profile. I am not from Ghana.
Okay. It's just like...
I just pulled for them in the World Cup.
They never made it to qualifiers, so it doesn't matter. So it's funny to me that... Look, man, I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm a guy that wears, Huey P. Newton shirts. I've studied the life of Malcolm X. I've studied civil rights people in this country, and I really do believe that one of the things that people that get so enamored with this conversation. I used to not be a big what's the dude's name from Atlanta? Good Lord. Mike something. Mike Jones. Is it Mike Jones?
Talk about the rapper?
No. Yeah.
Big Mike?
Big Mike. Yeah, whoever dude is from Atlanta. I didn't really...
the guy who was friends with Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that Big Mike? I think so.
No, that's not Big Mike. You just like being racist.
No, that's... stop it. His name is Mike something. It might be Mike Jones. It's not Mike Jones. That's racist.
No, Mike Jones. Mike Jones is...
Killer Mike.
Killer Mike, yeah.
That's right. The white dude knew the rapper's name. Good night, everybody.
I don't listen to anybody.
No, but he had that one joint action... It was good. It was good.
Yeah. Don't care.
But that's like I'm separating the politics from the artist.
Killer Mike, I don't really rock with a lot of things he says, but listening to more of the stuff he says, I'm like, I totally get that, right? T.I., I like his music, so it's different than Killer Mike. So first of all, Killer Mike, I'm not coming at you like that. I'm just saying, like, my kids introduced me to some of the opinions you have. And I was like, let me check that out because I don't want to be ignorant in those opinions, right? T.I., same thing. It's not that I have to agree on everything, but I understand the sentiment of what they're saying. And that's where it's like, one thing I will say, and Killer Mike made it very clear, like, look, if Bernie ain't saying the right thing, then Bernie. Like, seriously. Charlemagne the God, I don't agree with everything he's saying. But it's like, he's right, though. Like, I don't owe you any allegiance. And what I do get concerned about is that people that look like me, act like me, or that are not white, I'm not trying to be racist. It's like, look, man, we can't fall for the okie doke on some of this stuff because they've packaged, both parties have packaged fear and like false sense of hope, and we keep falling for it, and nobody's the better for it.
Dude, and that's a great point. That, I mean, like the Democratic Party is just as guilty as the Republican Party when it comes to packaging fear and selling on the idea of fear. You know, I mean, like, so much of Joe Biden's campaign was like subtly and not so subtly, can you imagine another 4 years with this nut job? You know, like,
shit, I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton because I don't like her.
oh my God. Was it Sunday morning? The Today Show had this like homage to Hillary Clinton or like tribute thing where it was like the dude, I can't remember his name, but he goes out and he's doing an interview with her and he's asking her all these questions about, like, she's reading the script, the victory script that she never got to read and all this stuff. And my dad was like losing it. He was like, why the are they? And I'm like, it would be one thing if it was like, oh, you know, there was mass voter fraud and, you know, somehow or whatever. Apparently, what I think they were kind of getting, like, the reason that they did this, and she specifically mentioned it, was Jim Comey coming out and announcing the investigation stuff right before, and she's like, I am convinced that if he hadn't done that, I would have won the election. And I'm sitting there like, God, read the room, woman. Like, you don't get this at all. And I did. All right. I voted for her in large part because the alternative was repugnant. And I could have, I mean, you know, like, I'm not justifying it, but I'm just saying, like, I did not agree with everything that she stood for. In a lot of ways, I was like, maybe she will just continue on a lot of what President Obama had kind of started. Right, I know, in your mind, look, I was 8 years younger at the point, all right? I was still in my 20s. I didn't have that much life experience. God. It wasn't that long ago. It was only like 5 years ago.
Yeah. I'm not saying, like, I'll tell you, like, look, the safe bet that the Republicans had for non-whites back in the day, it's no longer there, right? And if you're falling for that, then God bless you. Like, but I'll be honest, if you're not careful about either party, you're going to get caught up in a marketing message that doesn't benefit you or your family in the future. That's the sad.
Yeah,
that's the sad part.
That's the part that
And if you keep focusing on the federal elections, you're a bigger fool than what you play on TV.
We would all benefit greatly from spending more time in getting involved in our local elections.
Yeah,
you know, like, and that's something that I have actively been working on here since we moved, is like understanding who the candidates are. You know, like, now that we have. So, in Carolina Beach, for the longest time, you know, like, they have paid parking in the summer, and meters and stuff like that. In the winter,
yeah, I love Carolina Beach.
That's wonderful. In the off season, so the winter, it's free. They put little covers over the meter, and they don't collect. And it's supposed to be like, oh, the people who live here year round, and the other people that are still coming, even in the off season, like, you get this little.
That's a terrible idea, because guess what I'm gonna start doing in the winter?
Coming to Carolina Beach.
Yep.
That's not terrible. It's winter now. I'd love to see.
Well, it's terrible. It's
but it is like a little bit of an enticement for people to come down, and for the businesses around them, right? And the employees and stuff, like, they don't have to pay for parking and whatnot. Anyways, the outgoing town council, I believe none of which are retaining their seats, voted in favor of year-round paid parking after the new election. So, like, the new town council has been elected but hasn't been installed yet, and the outgoing council is like, yeah, let's go ahead and do paid parking year-round.
I don't hate that, though. Does it, like, what does it improve?
$65,000 in annual revenue. That's it.
Okay. Sure. Sign me up.
I don't want you to move here anymore. You know, just like, no.
No, but look at it this way, right? Getting in front of those expenses, like I'm sure that $65K goes to something, and hopefully they're presenting the budget, right? Of what that 60.
They claim
if it doesn't,
that the reason they're doing this is to keep pace with the paid parking lots in the area, like the private paid parking lots.
That's stupid. Yeah. That's stupid.
What they should do is,
but if it goes,
ban the private paid parking lots and just put a freaking parking garage near the boardwalk. They have a massive piece of property that is completely empty right now.
I don't know. Like, I don't live there, so I don't know the answer to that question.
I know.
But I think that
it's tricky. I understand that it's not a. It's one of those things where I know it's not the same, but I look at it as like Trump nominating Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court on his way out, right? If he had done that like after the election.
But you can repeal just about any law.
You can. And they will. That was like their whole argument was, well, the new town council coming in will have plenty of time to review it. In my mind, that's just kind of like, well, then why did you bother to vote on it anyways? Like, just
because it's an I gotcha, right? And that's what
I think what they're trying to do is take the part of it is that one of the town council members who's leaving ran and got elected to mayor.
There you go.
And so I'm sure he's like, let's push this through so that the old town council gets blamed for this. And then when the new town council comes in, we're like, well, they already voted for it, and we've decided to leave it in place.
No, you repeal it. You like those are.
I mean, I would, you would, but will Lynn Barbie?
But I don't know.
Will you, Lynn?
Will you? Carolina Beach,
you,
please
Lynn?
Do the right thing.
Will you?
Or tell me what the $65K goes for.
Will you? You gonna do it, Lynn? I voted for you. You owe me free parking.
You're an idiot, yo. Like what? That is so stupid. You're like calling out the mirror, like, yo, do your job, B.
I'm gonna tag him. I'm gonna cut that, and it's gonna be like, I'm watching you. It'll just be my video feed.
That is so terrible. but I think that that's another beep. Good Lord. I'm just frustrated. Like Patriot, whatever his name is, like he's not important to me. But
Patriot
I will say
1996.
Yeah, you gotta put Patriot in your name. Like you're a douchebag.
Okay, that's right. First strike.
Yeah, like I don't.
I was so disappointed. I was really hoping it was some like Russian or Chinese bot. I went immediately to look, and I'm like, oh, he started the account in like 2010. That's way too long ago.
Yeah.
If it was like 2020, 2021, I would have been like, yeah, we got a bot on our hands. Yeehaw!
He's a like.
To be fair, I mean, like, we got a bunch of conversation out of it, a bunch of tweets. We didn't get any other engagement, but
you got to bleep this word out. He's a like. I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it again. He's a. You cannot say because it's a racially charged word, but he's a.
I mean, I've got enough bleeping to do, so don't hold back. Just
he's a.
Yeah, there you go.
He's a. That's what he is. That's how I really feel about it. And I wish I could have said that on Twitter, but last time I did, we got suspended.
That's true. So I will say I really appreciate you not doing that. Speaking of which, and this is not to like completely change topics because I have no idea where we're going with any of the rest of this episode. By the way, I assume that Matt has given up trying to get back in.
Yeah, Riverside, please fix your mobile app.
Yes, but at the same time, like, does your son not own a computer?
Long story. He has to buy a new computer. Apple's shitty Touchbar. That's why I would recommend that you do not buy a Touchbar. Apparently have a motherboard issue. And it's going to...
You literally just convinced me to spend another $850. It's worth it.
Yeah, don't buy shit with a touch board on it.
I had one of the first generation MacBook Pros that had the touch bar. It wasn't the M1.
Don't buy that shit.
It wasn't
Touch
mine.
bar,
It was a
touch.
company computer before I left the area. That was the one that I had. I finally got upgraded to that. And it was silly. Like the touch bar, it was basically just like the function keys.
What did I call it? I said touch board.
No, you call it a touch bar.
You should have corrected me.
I thought you said it right.
Whatever. I want to be clear. It's a touch bar. It's garbage. Apple should never put that
But
on
it's literally
any type of
just the
hardware.
function keys paired down to whatever it is that you're using.
And it switches with the application.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
blah, blah,
yeah.
blah.
But the only time that I thought it was kind of neat was when I was like on Spotify. But I literally I have the pause, all of the buttons that I need right here in my function. I'm just saying, okay? Like there was one time where I found it minorly useful, and it wasn't even that useful. How's that?
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say. God, you're just so judgmental.
I am, because I think that keyboard shortcuts, that's why I hate Windows. I
It's not a
can't
keyboard
do
shortcut.
shit. Yeah, I never use my mouse. I rarely use my mouse in an entire working day. That's what I'm saying. For me, it's inconvenient to have to go, oh, look at the anyway, I love Apple. But what were you going to say? So yes, he does have a computer, but he's in this transition phase. I spent $600 to fix something that should not be a problem, or buy a new computer. Yeah.
Matt, when you inevitably listen to this podcast so that you can hear the part that you were on, hopefully you don't just stop right there. You're like, well, I'm not on the episode anymore, so I don't really care what these guys have to think. To be fair, I'd understand that. But yes, spend the money. Just hit your dad up. He's got plenty. My kid's at that age where she keeps asking me how much money is in my checking account. She's like, how much money is in your bank account? And I'm like, that's a rude question. She's like, why? Is it because you don't have very much? And I'm like, who are you talking to? No, I got plenty of money. I got more money than you can even count, girl.
Yeah, my daughter keeps yo, can I borrow some money?
She's in college. She's a broke college kid.
And I never get it back.
Well, yeah, okay. Come on. Kids don't borrow money.
I know. I would be like, yo, just let me get $20 or whatever it is.
Yeah,
right?
but it makes you feel ever so slightly better. It's like, can I borrow a tissue? You know? Like, you're not going to give that tissue back. But people say that.
Well, just say, let me hold $100.
Okay, here. All right, now give it back. You held it. Game over.
Or let me get Pop, can you give me $100? Like, okay, whatever. Or at least give me an option to say no. But you can't say
But
you can't start conversations out with let me borrow.
Well, okay, you can if you do actually intend to repay it, right?
But who intends on doing that?
I mean, I did. And do. No, I mean, I do. Like, if I have to borrow money, okay, I am very fortunate that I'm at a point in my life right now where, in large part, thanks to me finally selling the house that I lived in for 18 years, I have some money in my bank account because I finally cashed out all that equity. But the point is that for a long time, there were times where I'd have to be like, hey, could I borrow $100, to pay X bill or whatever, especially in college. And then I'd get paid and I'd pay my parents back. And then I'd be like, can I borrow $300? Because then I'd already spent more money. And then I never paid that back. But I would pay it back sometimes before I borrow more money. No, I mean, I do think that's part of it. Is there's probably an inherent desire to want to repay it at some point, even if you acknowledge that the chances of you repaying it are slim to none. I mean, I know that there were times well into my college career when I'm like, hey, can I borrow X amount of money? And my parents are like, borrow, yeah, okay.
That's what I do all the time. My kids never borrow money from me. It's like, why don't you say, let me get $100.
Have you ever said that to them?
No, because I don't want to embarrass them.
You really think you'd embarrass them if you said that?
Have you met my kids?
Yeah, we were literally just talking to one of them.
Yeah, so you come on, they're pals.
Yeah, but you're not the kind of person that would be embarrassed, so I don't think that your kids would grow up to be like.
But you're probably right.
Yeah,
it's a parenting challenge I have.
No, trust me.
Sure.
parenting challenges.
Like, if you're not going to pay me back, just say, yeah, let me,
Right.
just give me $100.
But that's a lot harder of an ask, right? Like, I think that's a lot harder to be like, no, I know what you're saying. Like, from your position, you're looking at both ways. Whether you're saying borrow or give me, you know going into it, like, I ain't seeing this money again. But as your kid going into it, you're like, man, you know, like, hey, Pops, throw me $100. You're going to be like, hey, off. Like, right? Yeah. But if you're, Dad,
Yeah.
books are really expensive this semester. And I'm so hungry. I haven't eaten in weeks.
But when you say you're going to borrow and you don't pay back, it's an integrity problem, right? And that's what sits in my head. It's
Okay,
like
but
you say you're going to do
all
something,
the
but you
more
don't.
reason to address this with your children.
You're right. You're not wrong. I'm saying
I know.
like that's a parenting
I'm being you in this situation.
Yeah, I know. It's annoying.
Well, now you know how I feel all the time.
Deep right there too. Being an asshole. But I love my kids, and I'll be honest.
love you too.
I think I'm glad I can, like, when my kids ask me for help, I don't feel impeded, and I can do so, like, you know, and that feels good. But it's just a matter of like, yo, like, speak plainly. Like, you're borrowing it from me, you're gonna pay me back. If you're not borrowing, just say, hey, let me get $100.
I mean, like, again, you know, my kid's 8, and I deal with similar things. She's not borrowing $100, thank God. But yeah, I mean, like, where you're trying to some degree, right? It's not about necessarily your interactions with them going forward. It's about setting the expectations for how they interact with the rest of the world.
Right.
And so that's, yeah, like, I completely understand that. There are so many times where I sit there and I, like, correct my kid saying something, and I'm like, why am I correcting her? Like, I know what she meant. And I'm like, oh, because not everybody is going to see it that way. And so then I'll explain that, be like, hey, you probably know that I know what you meant, but the reason that I'm telling you that this is how you should approach this is because it's going to help you further on, right? It will help you to develop, you know, better relations or whatever, to get, you know, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve.
Well, in real talk, the implications, like, outside of your house are never what you, like, kind of prescribe in your house, right? And, like, you don't want you, like, I always say, like, tell me what you're saying. Like, I don't want to, like, I know what you're saying, but just tell me what you're trying to get across to me.
Oh, I love it. Like, she'll come home and I'll be like, she'll sit on the chair, and I'll be like, all right, it's time to do homework. And she'll think for a second, and all of a sudden she'll sit up all excited, and she'll be like, actually, I earned 50 points in school today, and I chose no homework for the day. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't get anything from your teacher, so let me just message her real quick so that I can confirm that that's true. Well, don't do that.
God.
Yeah. And I'm like, why shouldn't I do that? I was like, stop lying. Get your homework out and get it done. Okay.
Yo, you want to hear about lying? You want to hear something funny?
I mean, is it going to embarrass one of your kids? Because if it is, hell yeah.
It's going to embarrass my wife. She's going to be so pissed. So I called her today. So we bought her a new iPhone, and I don't know what she did, but I don't think she was supposed to change the SIM card, or I don't know what she did. I really don't know, but it wasn't working. So it's like lunchtime. I'm like, oh, let me call my wife, see how she's doing. We talked for a little bit. I'm like, yo, your phone's really dead, right? I'm like, yeah, that sucks. So you got to fix that when you get home. She's like, yeah. We're talking a little bit more. She says, all right, I love you. I'll call you later. I'm like,
how are you going to
no, I'm like, you never called me in the first place. Like, what are you doing? She goes, oh, I just thought, like, no, you didn't think. I'm like, you're a liar. Like, don't lie to me. You didn't call me the first time. I called you. Like, give me that. Like, I called you because I was thinking about you. I miss you today. And I'm like, yeah, let me call my wife up. She's like, okay, I'll call you back later. I'm like, you didn't call me in the first place. Like, why are you such a liar? But anyway, yeah. I thought that was funny.
Yeah. No, it did. It just made me think of something else.
Is your wife a liar too?
No, not that I know of. No,
but But you'll never know because the average person will believe, like, I could have got off that call saying, yeah, my wife called me. She loves me. I'm just saying.
No, I mean,
I'm hip to the
that's, yeah. No, so what I'm thinking about is that the other week when you were talking about what love is, and you and your wife having a disagreement, and then you getting up in the morning and making her breakfast and bringing it to her, and her response to that. I recently tried the same thing.
Epic burn?
I mean, maybe my breakfast wasn't very good. But I did not have the same results. So
Was it the first time you did it or something?
I don't think that. Certainly not the first time I made breakfast and brought it to her in bed, but I don't normally do it, and
so that's the problem. That's the problem. That was the setup. Like, I often bring my wife.
Well, but I get that, but
coffee.
I'm like trying to show, like, okay, we may be having a disagreement, but like I'm still thinking about you, and I still care about you, and I bring it in, and I'm like, here you go, and she's like, thanks. And I think she ate like half of one of the pieces of toast and maybe drank like a sip of the tea, and then was just like, she threw the rest of it away later. And I was like, Andre gives the worst relationship advice. I'm never listening to that guy again.
Oh my God.
Like, this is my real life right now. Like,
I'm sorry.
no, I know.
I
Please laugh. I told the story because I knew you would find it absolutely hilarious. But it's just like, this is my life. It's like I hear stuff from other people who are like, I did this, and so is like, oh, this is this love, and I do this, and I'm like, it's like, what's this asshole think he's doing? He's gonna buy me off with some hummus and cucumber toast? I'm like, no, it wasn't about buying you off. I was just trying to be nice to, like, let you know, like, I'm not upset. I'm still thinking about you, and I care about you, and I love you. And I was sitting here, like, kind of, like, no, dude. I mean, like I said, I shared this because it's, yeah, I know it's funny. Like, I know it is. And because I'm 99.99999% sure that my wife never, ever, ever listens to this podcast.
But you know what you should have done, though? Seriously, like, that's gonna be part. It's got to be something you normally do, right? So I normally make my wife breakfast on the weekend.
I guess, like, that's where I was struggling. Was I felt like the stuff that I normally do was getting nowhere.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you normally cook?
Yes, I cook like 99.9% of the time.
Consistently, you take your wife breakfast or whatever. Like, you make a meal for her?
I mean, like
outside of dinner or like whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'll make her lunch and bring it to her. I'll make her breakfast sometimes and bring it to her. It's not outside the normal for me to come in with a cup of coffee or now a cup of tea.
Okay.
And some breakfast.
You must have really effed up.
I mean, I guess. I don't know. Well, I do know, but
I know I really effed up, and I still got the save.
Well, and that's, I mean, I guess like, no, it's just, like I shared that photo on our social media feeds of like my washing machine that's apparently anti-white now.
Yeah, that's funny.
But I guess my wife is too. I didn't realize that, but like, it's
no,
just all.
You must you must have really effed up, yo. Like, I don't know how you roll in that department, but like, I never go too far outside the lines. You must have effed up.
I don't know, man. I mean, I guess it's all a matter of perspective and relativity in this case.
I straight up, like, I'll be honest, like, so to the dudes out there listening, like, here's a meal it diffuses a lot of arguments, right? Like, people cannot argue and eat a meal together. It's just not normal.
Unless the food's really terrible.
Secondly, that's the pretext. But secondly, you can't take shit personal, right? And it's not about the guy saying it or the woman saying it. It's about, like, one of you have to be smart enough to know that it's not personal. It's about the issue that got them upset, basically. That's how I look at it. So my wife says, like, she says some stuff that's just kind of, like, funny to me. I'm like, yeah, she really said that shit. And I don't take it personal. I'm like, all right, cool, whatever, right? Like, I don't react to it. Now, that's not good all the time, because sometimes you're like, I said this to you. I'm like, yeah, I heard you. I'm going to keep moving, though. But it doesn't bother me. I'm like, yeah, it bothers me, but what do you want me to tell you? You want to fight with me about this? Right? So, like, I'll tell you something that'll make you laugh. So there are 3 words I can no longer say to my wife. And they crack me up. She said, I said, my wife, she'll drop stuff, right? And I'm like, oh, why are you so clumsy? She hates that word. She's like, you cannot call me. She cannot call her clumsy.
You, Riverside. Like, my life isn't shitty enough already. You gotta give me these damn repeats. Sorry.
Then, what's the other one? I said, we're talking, and I'm like, yo, why are you acting like such a clown? She hates that word. I can't call her clown.
Yeah.
And I never call my wife crazy, but I say nuts. So I'm like, yo, that's kind of nuts. And I say it in general, like, casual conversation, because I don't like that word. So I can't call my wife nuts, a clown, or clumsy. And I just think it's hilarious. I'm like, all right, whatever. But she got so, like, it was funny the when I, like, each time I said those words to her, she goes, why would you say that to me?
Like, how offended she got?
Yeah, I'm like, what? And she was like, why would you ever call me clumsy? I'm like, because you drop shit all the time. You're clumsy. She goes, I don't like that.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand that.
But those are words I just kind of grab because they're like, you know.
To you, they're like words of affection. Like, you love how clumsy she is. Like, it's cute to you when she drops stuff. It's not, you're not like, ha ha, you dropped something, idiot. You know, like, that's me. I'm like, ha ha, you dropped something, idiot. Except I'm looking in the mirror.
But like, all the time, it's like, I find in relationships, you can't take shit personal. And I think that's probably part of why your breakfast failed.
I guess. I don't know. It's been challenging. I mean, I'm like,
but you're still living with your parents?
Yeah, and it's a nightmare.
And that's the problem.
My mom doesn't necessarily listen, although she's trying to listen more. I got her subscribed on Apple Podcasts finally. She was like, subscribe me to your podcast.
That's good.
I'm 99.9% sure my dad doesn't ever really listen anymore. But they flew out today to go to Portugal to go visit my sister. So my sister, who does listen sometimes, and her husband.
What's your sister's name again? Katie. Hi, Katie. If you're listening, the only way I'll know you're listening if you actually respond and say,
yeah, you have to like comment on something, somewhere, anywhere.
She won't.
No, because I don't think she really listens all that often. Love you, Katie. I understand why. But they just had their first baby, a little baby boy.
Congratulations.
Grayson.
Katie's husband's name?
Stefan.
What? Katie and Stefan, that's dope. Congratulations. I'm done with that race, but congratulations. Enjoy all your sleep. Grayson's a dope name. That's a dope name.
But yeah, so where was I going with this? I don't know.
So you probably don't have the pressure of being with like your entire family in the house.
Yeah, thank you. So they went to go visit them for the holidays. And so they left. In fact, I think my mom just texted me
like 2 days ago.
No, like today. They were supposed to leave at like 4:45, and apparently the plane, when it came in from Atlanta to Wilmington, broke the landing gear. So they had to get a new plane.
That's comforting.
Yeah, right? Don't put me on that plane. But yeah, so they're going to Portugal. They're going to be gone for the next 3 weeks, and so we have the house to the 3 of us plus the 2 dogs. So I don't know. Like, I'm hoping that helps some, but it has been a very difficult challenge for me the last couple of weeks. Personally, it's been.
Well, you estimated that your house would have the remodel stuff done by October, November.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good luck with
Update
that.
on that for those that are curious and watching at home. The kitchen cabinets are installed. Woohoo! I have flooring and tile. I think tile is going to start early next week, and then flooring will be right after that. And then we have a little bit of plumbing left to finish up, I think, just with like the bathtub and the master, but that should be the majority of what's left.
So you're probably looking like
mid-January.
Mid-February. Mid-February.
End of January.
You're not going to get... Nope, mid-February.
Stop it.
It's true. Because, like, the holidays are going to affect you, and that's probably why...
I don't celebrate holidays, so I don't expect anybody else to either. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be launching my new website on Christmas morning, and so I don't care if you asked off. You need to be here, and if something goes wrong and I can't get a hold of you,
you're fired.
There will be consequences, and they will be severe.
Yeah. You're probably looking at mid-February, more realistically. Because this is the worst
why
time
I
to do,
don't talk to you. You're so pessimistic all the time. I'm just kidding. I love talking to you.
I'm being accurate.
Yeah, I know, but that's not helpful right now. I want to feel good about something.
Okay. You'll feel good about saying mid-February to your wife so you're not getting your ass kicked.
No, the goal is... It's like Trump's...
She likes your hummus on toast.
No, it's like Trump's healthcare plan. It'll be about 2 weeks.
You're going to have infrastructure week?
Yeah, 2 more weeks, the house will be done. I have no idea why my wife won't talk to me.
I can't, yo. I can't. Oh, man. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have...
gone off the rails.
Started out... Yeah.
I mean, it happened pretty quickly.
So,
like, we had 3 topics in politics, and we spent an hour and 45 minutes talking. And I love it.
It was a bit... It's a big one. And that's good. It's like... It's conversations in general. Like, you should be able to talk about something and it's not prescribed. And I think that's dope.
It's our new hashtag, or new catchphrase for our podcast. Conversations in general.
Conversation.
It's like regatta ND, but conversations in general. If this was a music podcast, man, I'd be slaying it right now. Get it? Christmas, slay, Santa.
Yeah. God.
God.
I don't know what to do with that. I'm just saying, like, I don't think.
Here, I know what to do with that. But you beat me to it. Thank you. Can I just say, as much as I loved having, I know I keep interrupting you, and I'm sorry. I'll let you finish up in just a second. But I loved having Matt on for the little bit that we did. He better join us next week or some other time because I want to have like a real conversation maybe after he gets his real computer. I was really disappointed that we didn't have friend of the show Joe on this week, only because I did change up my whole background essentially for him. And I brought a special gift.
Oh, where'd you get that from?
This was one that I think my mom bought for me at one point when I was into comic books way back in the day.
What's that's like an 87, 88.
It
90s.
might be newer than that.
Look at now look at
95.
Yep.
But yeah, I remember getting and reading this comic book like as a kid, and being like, "F the Klan, man."
Yeah, if you like, I knew from the hair. Like I used to. I'm not a good comic artist. I'm just not good at it yet. I haven't had a chance to practice. But
you're doing that thing that I do that you always get really upset about, where you're underselling your ability.
No, I'll tell you this. I can appreciate that. Like, I study a lot of the artists back in like forever, and I can tell you probably just with some accuracy the time period of when those comics were printed, just by the art design. So yeah. But anyway, nobody cares about that.
I don't think that's true. I actually think there's probably a decent chunk of our audience that would love us to have, like, I mean, maybe next week, if or at some point when Joe joins us again, we do like just a dedicated to comics episode.
Yeah, I think that'd be dope. I do want to say this, like we do really appreciate the comments.
Yeah, Gra55 or whatever.
Yes,
dude, thank you. That was waking up to that was like. So he had commented on like the Tesla video first, and I still need to reply to that.
Can we just say we, or just like we don't know if it's a he or she?
Okay, fair.
They. Yeah, it's fair. So I don't want to, like, I'll be honest. Like sometimes.
No, I understood.
This is not me being PC. Just
well, that's like, where I was with Patriot 1776, and you were like, "That's a dude."
Yeah, but I saw his face.
Well, yeah, but that's assuming that he puts his picture on there. I have my picture on there, but it's from when I was 16. I don't look anything like that anymore.
Still a dude.
Actually, no, I look exactly like that.
You're such a liar.
I got
so anyway, so Gra55,
yeah. On YouTube, like such a stark contrast between the conversation we had on YouTube and the conversation that we had on Twitter. That was one of the things that I like. This person, left an incredibly well thought out and insightful comment about our social media video on TikTok. And when Andre and I both took the time to reply and be like, you make excellent points, and kind of not even like rebut, right? But like kind of bring up some of the other stuff that we talked about in the video. We had like a really nice dialogue back and forth. And that, like, again, if Patriot 1776 had come at it from more of that standpoint, where it's like, I can understand the desire to want to label all Republicans racist or all racists as Republicans, but, there's really a lot of history on both sides. And I think that here's why I feel like this is important for us to have this conversation. Boom. Totally cool. But instead it's like, nah, man, Democrats are racist too, and here's like a bunch of flimsy evidence on it. And it's like, if you have legitimate evidence, please share it. But I'm not, like, what you're sharing is not backing up the point that you're making. Yeah. And so anyways, thank you very much for your comments. Please continue to enjoy the videos and to continue to comment. As you can see, like, both of us try to engage regularly on our different platforms when we can and when we feel like the conversation actually warrants it, which is pretty much every time. Like, you hit us up. We don't really have that much better to be doing, especially on the weekend.
I think it's...
Although the Broncos did win
this
weekend, so good kudos to you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Teddy Bridgewater is just giving you, like, just enough hope that he can then dash it on the rocks again.
God. I think every conversation's important. It's just the intent behind it. And to Patriot, 1776. Again.
What is 1776? Like, I don't even... Is that like an important year or something in America's history?
The Constitution.
What is the Constitution? I don't... Was there a declaration of something in that year?
I think so, possibly.
Oh, that's right. The Declaration of
Independence.
Oh, Independence? I thought it was indent my pants.
I mean, it's so unique. And,
I don't even know.
Creative.
What is this
so
episode?
I don't know. I think we just... I will give this to Patriot,
Patriot Poopy Pants. That's your new name.
I don't really care about that person like that. Here's the thing you got to understand. Like, most people won't even acknowledge your existence. Or here's something I've said to people many plain times, and I mean it. I'm going to sleep with my eyes closed and wake up, and they're going to be open. So what you do or say doesn't change that for me. But I do appreciate the fact that you engaged. So you do like people deserve a response. Sure. Doesn't mean you change opinions or like anything.
And it doesn't mean that our response is going to be very nice, but
yeah, I do think, like, I will say your response was kind of childish, and like you didn't do the homework of actually even listening before you like reached out.
Yeah, I did.
F you for that. No, your boy.
Oh, you're talking to him. I was like,
yeah. So if you ever want to, like, I'll even do this. If you want to be like a guest, like, hit us up. So,
I am so glad you said that, because I was like this close to posting something on Twitter, because to be clear, and Patriot 1776, if you happen to, for whatever reason, decide to check out this episode of our podcast and listen all the way through.
No, screw that. We'll even make it a point to make a clip to invite you on.
I almost invited him on via Twitter, and then I was like, maybe not. But I'm glad you said that.
No,
because,
intentionally, yeah.
Because, yes, like, let's have the conversation. Come on. Like, if you
put your big boy pants on and, like, get at us, like, I'm saying, like, get at us and have a conversation, because I think it's intellectually dishonest to, like, have a grievance and not actually discuss the facts. So I would love to talk to you, probably not around the holidays, probably like after the holidays, but we will definitely make a clip. We will even tag you in the clip to say, hey, by the way, no hard feelings. Let's have the conversation. So there's no pretense. It's just like, let's have the conversation. So, yeah.
Totes.
I'm not afraid.
My goats.
Yeah. At any rate.
Shut up, Joe. Sorry.
We're glad you joined us. You can always find us on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Google Podcasts, TuneIn. And for the adventurous people out there, on our website, chrisandershow.com, you can find our RSS feed. Put that into your favorite RSS reader. I love Plex, and Plex does not pay us, but...
No! God, please, no!
If you're looking for more content, go to our website, chrisandershow.com. You can always find us at Chris and Andre on Facebook and at Chris and Andre on Twitter.
And Instagram.
If you have... And Instagram, because I don't really know.
Thanks, Obama.
If you have any comments, send us an email at comments@chrisandandreshow.com.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby!
I swear to God.
That's the last one.
Okay, I swear to God. You can always hit us up. And for my awesome son, sorry we had some technical difficulties. We're definitely going to have you back on to once we get that fixed out. To Patriot 1776, in all seriousness and sincerity, we'd love to have you on to actually discuss your points, and we can make it a whole episode about you. We can just talk about the things that you disagree with in our position, and we would listen and obviously just have that conversation. I think that's one of the most important things that's missing from the dialogue about politics. It's not about disagreements. We can all narrowly agree on what we disagree on, but can we talk about the actual facts and points that we like to bring?
Well, and where we do agree, right? I mean,
and where
that's
we do
the
agree.
other area that I just think we've missed out so much on. We focus so much on the disagreements that we've missed the commonalities that we all share. And I think if we could focus a lot more on that, God, we'd be getting so much more done right now.
Yeah, and I don't concede to your position. I'd say I think it's worth having the dialogue. I'm not going to sit there and be a keyboard warrior or a thumb type. Like, look, I'd love to hear your position and the things that you find important to you. And I don't want to be disparaging, neither does Chris. But let's have the conversation, and that's fair. Let's have the conversation. Let's figure out where we can actually say, hey, you know what? Great points, and let's move on. Or, hey, that's something to consider. And let's work together, and so we can bring more people along to make the country
And that's
better.
something that is much more easy to do over a podcast, video chat interaction than it is over 280 characters on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm never going to do that, Like, it's just never going to be a thing. So, as always, I'm Andre.
And I am still Chris.
And we're super glad you joined us. We'll talk to you next time.